HaKadosh Baruch Hu, um, created Adam Harishon. He created from Amaria. The place of the creation was the place of Teshuvah. This place of the
Mm,
Holy Temple was going to be built. So I was thinking, like, once again, here we are in part of Shakiti Side after the sin of the Egel. And Hashem says, hey, this is how you're going to, find atonement for yourselves. This place of atonement also became the base, the foundation of the Mishkan, the foundation of the world. And I was just thinking about that, like, wow, Baruch Hashem, like, even there's no reason to think that you fall too low.
mm.
Your misdeeds actually become the foundation, a springboard to send you to outer space, to send you to a whole different reality. You know what I mean? It's no reason to ever think that, you know what, Shem ain't worried about me, I'm doing too much. Nah, never. If the Bnei Israel can come back from the sin of the golden calf, and we can come back at any time from anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's powerful. Yeah, no, it's a very good piece. When you're speaking, one of the thoughts that came to me was thinking like, when you think about the original like sin of man, right? And this idea that like, there's an idea in the tradition that says if Adam and Chava would have not eaten from the Eitz Das and Shabbat would have came in, that would have been the completion of creation, right? But then later we learn in other texts, we learn about this idea of the neshama having to go through this process of like correction, right, in order to have Mikhail Hamatim. And you talk about this whole idea of a future reality, right? Of all these souls being reincarnated, these perfected souls coming back into this world, this whole dynamic, right? And then we learn about the difference between the older souls in the newer souls, just in terms of like the greatness of the souls in the past, but however the souls of this age have the ability to do so much, right? Because of the structures that built prior. So it makes you wonder about that idea. Like, what does that mean then? Like, if we know that this whole process of creation, this whole process of evolution is happening, what is this idea that if Adam and Chava would have not eaten from the tree, they would have? So you're saying from that time to from that time of them being created, from the time the Shabbat comes in, right? Because it's like so many hours, right? Shabbat comes in, so on that process of Shabbat coming in, right? Which is an interesting thing because it really brings a unique idea around, Erev before Shabbat, right? Like how special that time is, right? Because Adam was created on that sixth day, right? In the afternoon, right? And so from the afternoon into sunset, that was going into that seventh day, right? And so you think about that idea of like, okay, well, Adam, Adam Adam went through this process. So maybe the way to reconcile it, it's not the point of today's discussion. It just came up now, but I'm just thinking about the way to reconcile it is that, in life, there's always great potential of what could have happened, right? And perhaps if that would have happened, right, then then everything would have been completed, right? Everything would have been done, right? But at the end of the day, this is the way it had to manifest. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like that duality of like, okay, like if I would like sometimes like I think about like even high school, right? And I think about like I mean I don't do it as much, but I used to think about like plays in high school. Like if I would have just went this way a little bit more, if I would have went that, or if I would have made this play, I still go through these things in my head, and not so much now, but I used to, think about old stuff in sports. And so you think about like, oh wow, if I would have done that, done this, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know what I mean? Like God put you at that angle, right? At that moment, because you being at that angle in that set of situations played all these different roles and ramifications after that, right? That your soul needed to go through. So, anyways, it's just I don't know. It's an interesting idea. How's everybody doing? You guys good? You guys, how's that fast energy going?
Shalom,
We're
shalom.
holding on.
Yeah.
We're
All
holding
right.
on.
It's
How
okay.
y'all
It's okay.
doing?
We're good. We're good. We're good. Ochino, you good?
Yeah, I'm good, Rob. I was gonna ask you something. You know,
Mm,
I be on I be thinking about stuff like,
mm.
kid, is it possible for us? Obviously not this year, but maybe like when the days line up, is there a tradition that people fast 3 days instead of the one?
Actually, it's interesting. A couple years ago, when we had a leap year, right? When we had a leap year, we did actually a 3 day fast. When Rabbi Pinchas was in Jerusalem, I mean, he administered the whole thing, but we did a 3 day fast during the first Purim Katan, like because it was a leap year, so there's two Adars. So those two Adars, we did on the first Adar we did a 3 day fast, and then whatever. But it just worked out that way. It wasn't like necessarily planned. It was just worked out that way. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could do it. Rabbi Pinchas does a lot. Chief Rabbi Pinchas, he's very big into fasting. Very, very big into fasting. Very big into kunim. I mean, I've done it. Like I did the 3 day shalig, one of the most intense things I've ever done in my life. Because like we fast for 3 days, and then they have this thing where like in one of the rooms, because Rabbi Pinchas's learning institution was in the old city of Jerusalem, right? And so one of the rooms will be like all plastic, and it'll be filled with like ice everywhere. And then so what you would have to do is he'll be reading these different meditations, and then you would have to like lay down flat, completely flat on this ice, and then get a stand all the way up, and then he'll say certain things, and then you'll go back down on the ice. And I think you do it close to 100 times. It could be more, I don't remember, but I just remember it was at a point. Like I even told her, everyone was laughing at me when I told them the story. I was like, bro, I was like in the middle of it. I was like, hey, you know what? I thought that was it. Like I thought that was it. Like this is the end of my life. I was just like, this is it's over with. Like imagine fasting 3 days, no food, no water, no nothing, and then the culmination of it is this ice and the shalig and this whole thing. So, anyways, and even after you do that, you don't finish the fast until that night, right? So the thing is, just saying, so we did that, and it was really intense. So yeah, so on that level, like at some point, when Rob Pinkas, Chief Rob Pinkas really opens up everything, you'll be able to. But that's a very important point, by the way, because the thing is like this: somebody like at Chief Rabbi Pinchas's level, it's an important day. So I know like it was like it was a person that we know, wanted to learn with Rabbi Pinchas, right? And they were like, okay, I want to learn Rabbi Pinchas, blah blah blah. And so he asked Rabbi Pinchas, I want to learn about Kiddush, right? Now the thing is like this. Now, if you want to adequately learn with someone like Rabbi Pinchas, we take the concept of kiddush, right? So that means what you would have to do is like one, you have to, read all of the Mishnah on kiddush, right? All of the Gemara on kiddush. Then you read all of the halakha on kiddush. The same things we're doing now. We're doing the same things we're doing now. Then learn whatever different points of different kabbalistic ideas and this whole thing, all the things that we're doing now. Then you get all of that. Then you're at a point where you can ask him a question that's worth his time. He will do it because he's a nice person. You know what I'm saying? But most people like Mikubalim, like they're not like accessible guys like here in Israel. You know what I mean? Like they're in a whole separate thing. Like the people like in the old city of Jerusalem, when you come here, they don't leave the old city. Like they're only staying close to the purity of the old city. They don't even want to go outside the old city. You know what I mean? Like Rabbi Pinchas never like I don't even know how many times he left the old city when he was there. So it's just to say that like to like appreciate the level of where he's at because he's a master in Kabbalah, right? Like he's in that space like big time, like at the highest levels of our like we learned about Beit El Yeshiva, right? I think that was with the Otino, right? That's where Rabbi Pinchas got his smika from. But it's just to say that that's the thing. So he does give classes, but he's being like you know what I mean? Like, but in reality, it's like you should learn how we're doing it, right? And then you have all of that body of work, and then you could sit with a giant and then ask proper questions or get proper clarity, or you know what I mean, and these type of things. Because the Torah he's teaching, like I don't, I mean, like I mean, it's not the same way as it was when he was in Israel. You know what I mean? Because he has like general classes, these types of things, and so I'm doing a lot more teaching and these types of things now too, and so. But when we were inside the old city, like we were learning an extremely high level of Torah, extremely high level Torah. Like when we had to take breaks and this, it was just very, very, very high and very complex. So I don't know, and he was bringing like sources like Rabbi Akiva's teacher, Rabbi Nechunia, like just like these types of things. So, anyways, with that point, is just giving appreciation to Chief Rabbi Pinchas in his level, and we're on the right path for that, right? And that's the point. The point is just saying that you guys should be proficient in all the levels of understanding of what it like the same way we're going through Purim, right? All these details, right? All these details. That is the thinking process that you have to apply to every single holiday. That you're clear on every single detail. That it's just like, okay, let's ask the rabbi, hey, rabbi, what do you do here? It's just like, no, that's not. Like, I don't deal with people at that level. That's not me. That's not me. I don't chill with followers. You know what I mean? Like I only chill with leaders. You know what I mean? So I'm teaching a dynamic that you will be proficient, right? And once you're proficient, then you could put the Kabbalah on top. Even though we do teach, even though we're reading Rav Ashlag, we get prepared for the Zohar, right? But the Zohar, the training for the Zohar is more important to me because I wanted to bring an alternative perspective on reality, right? Because I know you guys come from, a background like Christianity, this thing, Hebrew Israelites, the JC stuff, but you guys got away. I get it. But still, the Exodus is the alternative way of seeing reality. Not saying you got to believe it, but here's an alternative way of viewing the whole system. How to view your soul, how to view everything, and things you guys have already known, right? But like just bringing it together, that you do that, and then to give language, right? Because now language allows you to understand the codes, right? And so now when you go and do your exploration, now you're like, oh yeah, we know what that means. We know what those abbreviations. We know what's being said. We know what to make up. We know how to build up. Rabbi Ashlag brings that, right? But the main thing is being able to be proficient, right? And the main thing to be proficient on is like, what is the system of reality, right? Light and vessel, right? The different levels of desire, God's will, the plan, the whole thing, right? Because it's like at the end of the day, like we can't teach Torah. Torah's just, it's a book, right? It's a book as words, right? So what does it mean to teach Torah, right? Teaching Torah is giving a person an alternative way of seeing reality, right? Not that you're trying to convince them that this is the way, because it has to be voluntary, right? If it's not voluntary, it's not gonna last, right? Whatever heebie-jeebies you do are gonna wear off, right? And you're back at square one. So it has to be voluntary, right? So you present the sources, right? And like actually, is in the memory of my Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Schiller, who passed away over Shabbat. And I remember one thing he said about like Or Sameach, the institution. I went to Zakaria, I went to actually. Mark Stoudemire was there. That's how we all met, actually, in yeshiva, right? And so one of the things Rabbi Schiller would say, he says, here at Or Sameach, we don't want to convince, anybody, to become religious or more religious, because the institution itself was built specifically for people who did not grow up with like a high level learning as a Jew, right? And so, but those people, they were trying to bridge the gap between the guy who had like an average, like kind of like Jewish education growing up. Maybe they were kind of like, modern Orthodox, this, whatever, whatever. And so that institutions, they were built to bridge the gap between them and the mainstream, what they call yeshiva world, the religious, the learning community, right? The yeshiva world is a whole world with the whole environments are based around like learning, culture, and this is a whole thing. But the point is saying that institution was built for that, right? So he says when people come, we never try to convince them to become religious, right? He says, but rather what we do is we show them the sources and we show them how to learn the sources. And then from there, they will come to a conclusion of what they want to do, right? And I just like, wow, what an amazing idea, right? So that's my approach as well, right? Is never to like convince on anything. It's just saying like this, but make it vividly clear what it is, right? And then from there, a person has to make their decision, and that's teaching Torah, right? That's teaching Torah. The other stuff is using the Bible to coerce people to do this and that, right? That's the other stuff. That's not Masura. That's not tradition. That's something else, right? When you're using the Torah to convince people to do things, that is something else. The rabbi's job is just to pass on the tradition, right? And to make it tangible and accessible and these things, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, that's it. We're not here to like make people make donations, this, whatever. Okay, if you believe in tzedakah, you believe in tzedakah. If you don't, what do you want me to do? I don't want no problems. I'm trying to get to the next world. You know what I'm saying? So so that idea is why this alternative reality is there, because in this alternative reality, I'm in charge, right? I have my free will and I could decide to connect to the light force of the creator, right? That force of the creator, I have the ability to connect to it. It's my choice, right? So with all this going on, just we're in this fast, we're in this thing, and it's just like, we can't think about this idea. We have to think about the fact that the hunger and the discomfort is making us aware that we have a soul, right? That we're not just a body, right? We are a neshama, and our neshama is actually being nourished right now. The fasting is a time to create a relationship with our own soul, something that we have no recognition of, something that's beyond our logic, something that is connected to the endless world, and it's who we are. It's an unbelievable thing. The very thing that we can't fully understand because how high it is and how elevated it is the very thing that's giving me life right now to speak to you. That's who we are as human beings, right? So so right now on the fasting component, this is a chance of getting in touch with that, right? And as we say, like every day has a unique light, right? Every day has a unique light. So what's the unique light? The unique light is, in a ways, the ways you could describe it is like this. Like, what is, if you think about it, Esther and Mordechai represent the 613 mitzvahs, right? Right? How? Right? How? Esther represents going after the connection, which is the 248 mitzvahs, the positive commandments. You're going after them. You got to do it. You got to be a zealot. You got to just go after them. Don't go, 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 go. That's Esther. She went. She broke the boundaries. She was a zealot. She prepared herself, though, too, because we learned that last night. She prepared herself. But the point is saying she went forward 100%. And Mordechai represents that concept of restriction, a staying away. And that's that's the 365 negative commandments. The things you stay away from, the things you're prohibited to do, right? And so they're making up that reality right now. So it's like, hi, we can't be looking at characters. We can't just like, spend our time, looking at characters and saying like, hey, this character Mordecai, he went and he said this and Haman said this. No, we're looking at spiritual attributes that are being expressed as people. This is what the Torah is. That's why they say Abraham is like Hesed, right? Yitzhak is like Gevurah. Jacob is like Tiferet. What are they saying? What are they saying? They're saying, no, you're not just reading about characters. You're reading about energy influences in the world in certain conditions that are dealing with other energy forces. Esav is a different energy source. Haman is a different energy source, but they're going against this energy source. So this is the complexities of how this reality manifests itself and how these energies react. Oh, but we're still kids. We got to read it as characters. Okay, I get it. Harry Potter. I got it. Harry Potter, I got it. This is ancient Harry Potter. God forbid. No, these are energy influences, right? And when we look at the lineages of where the people come from, when we say the 12 tribes represents, the 12 configurations of the cycles of, you know what I'm saying? So all these things are not just reading about people. You're reading about how energy is manifest, right? We learned this from Rob Ashlag, that the light is the same. The vessels, right? We're going to get back to Rav Ashlag, not today, but right now we're completely in perm. We're submerged. There's no other reality. And this is how you're going to have to prepare your students. There's no other reality than when it's time for the light to come in. There's nothing else. We got to be completely submerged in that reality because that's the way we connect to the light. But the idea, and we're about to go into some teachings right now. We're about to go into um, the conclusion, right, of Esther, right? In this dynamic of Esther, because we went to some very deep places, yesterday, very deep places. But the idea is to say that we want to be completely submerged into this light. We have to be aware that when we're fasting, that this is a time to become aware that we have a soul and have that intimate time with our soul and like, whoa, right now, even though my body is aching and my body is weak, my soul is gaining. But I can't necessarily feel it, right? I can't feel my soul getting filled up the way that I would if I could have that fried chicken right now. You know what's going down later, right? But I'm being filled up, right? So that whole dynamic, I can't feel it. This is a reminder of all the mitzvahs. We can't judge reality on what we just feel or pleasure, right? Sometimes you will feel pleasure. You will. You will feel elevation. You will feel a powerful light. But at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with what our soul is receiving, right? And so this dynamic of fasting is a dynamic of separating the soul and the body. Yes, the body could be suffering. The body can be suffering and the soul can still be winning. That's a big idea. Whoever would think of such a thing, right? If the body's hurt, for sure the soul is hurting. Not necessarily, not when it comes to spirituality. Okay, so we're going to keep it going. We just, sometimes we got to have these pep talks, right? We got to have these pep talks. We got to keep this thing going, keep the machine going, keep the iron burning. Okay, so Esther, this is Esther's greatest moment in her life. All right, arguably. All right, maybe she may say something differently. Okay, but just so far at least, right? This is the greatest moment of her life, right? And Esther is accepting that she was put at this place at this time in history to be able to change the world by saving the Jewish people, by saving Klal Israel, by being able to bring that community out of a place of annihilation, right? And saving the world. And it's like when you think about it, it's like, come on now. Like really, if God put you in a position to save the world, I mean, what are you gonna be scared of? That's on God. You put me here. I didn't ask for this. Esther wasn't praying to be Achashverosh's wife. It happened. So now she's in it. After finishing prayer, Esther betook herself to the king and accompanied by three attendants, one walking on the right of her, and the second one on the other side, and the third bearing her train heavy with precious stones with which it was studded. That's an interesting combination. Her chief adornment was the Holy Spirit that was poured over her. But scarcely did she enter the chambers containing the idols when the Holy Spirit departed from her. She cried out in great distress. Ooh. Eli Eli Azam Azmini. Whoa. She shall be chastised for the acts that I will do against my will, and in only in an obedient to the proponing of sore need. Proponent, I don't know. Okay, why? Okay, so he says like this: why should my fate be different than that of mother? Right? I'm trying to understand. There's a lot of cryptic stuff going on. When Pharaoh only attempted, oh, okay. So fine. So now we're talking about Sarah. Okay, now we got it. Okay, now I get it. I get it. Eli, Eli Lama, Asbinina, Eli to me, what is? Okay, so she's saying like okay, so it's kind of weird reading Ellie in English because you think of the name, but he's saying like he said what he said he's basically like she's saying like what is this whole situation like to me like why am I in this situation like he says should why she's about to walk into the chamber and the chamber's there and she's imbued with holiness. She's imbued with holiness, and as she's walking into the chamber, the Holy Spirit walks away, goes away. Why? Because there's idols in there, right? And the Holy Spirit cannot be where idols are at. So now she's like, what? I just did this whole transformation. What's going to happen? This is powerful. And she says, why should my fight be different than my mother? When Pharaoh only attempted to approach Sarah, plagues came upon him in his house, and I have been compelled for years to live with this heathen, and thus does not deliver me out of his hand. O Lord, the world, I have not paid the scrupulous heed to these commandments, and thou is specifically ordained for a woman. So at this point, she's just crying out to God. She's like, my Sarah, my ancestor, she was in the same situation, and she couldn't even get touched by the Pharaoh. And when she did, the Pharaoh had plagues all over him. He says, by me, I had to live with the heathen for a year, and now I have to do this situation and this whole thing. And she says, what is this? Why are you putting me through this? This is how this is ordained for me. So she's going through it. She's going through it. She says to reach the king, Esther had to pass through 7 apartments, each measuring 10 ills in length. The first 3 she traversed unhindered. I don't know what that is. He says, and they were too far off of the king to observe her progress through them. But barely she had crossed the threshold of the 4th chamber when Ahasuerus caught sight of her, and overcame by rage, he exclaimed, O thou depart like thou had not found again on earth. How I urge you to entreat Vashti, who appeared before me, and she refused, and I had her killed. Therefore, this Esther came. He says, this Esther came hinder without invitation into a public prostitute. All right, so I guess he has this elaborate thing. She's walking towards the guy, and he sees her. He gets really angry. He starts basically cussing her, telling her, she better get out of here or she's finished. He says, in consideration and despair, Esther stood rooted in the center of the 4th chamber. This is interesting, these chambers, right? Because this is very Kabbalistic. having once allowed, because the 4th chamber on the Sphirot would be Netzach, right? Which is like endurance, perseverance, right? Victory. Having once allowed her to pass through the doors under their charge, the guard of the guard of the first 4 rooms had forfeited their authority over her, and to the guards in the other 3 rooms had yet given cause for interfering with her. And yet the courtiers were so confident that Esther was about to suffer death penalty that the sons of Haman were already busy dividing the jury among themselves and casting lots for her royal purple. Esther herself was needing aware of her dangerous position, and in it she sought God. It is Eli Eli lema zimbamni. So she's saying like God, what do you want from me? Right? So she's saying, he says, and pray to him the words which have been found in the place in the platter composed by King David, because he put her confidence in God and answered her petition and sent 3 angels to help her. And one enveloped her countenance in the thread of grace, and second raised her head, and the third drew out the scepter of Ahasuerus until it touched her. He says the king turned his head around and avoided seeing Esther, but the angels forced him to look her way and be um, conjured by her seductive charm. He said, by the reason of the long fast, Esther was so weak she was unable to extend her hand towards the scepter of the king. The archangel Michael had to draw her near it, and Ahasuerus then said, I see thou must have been a most important request to prefer else, or hasn't they have not risked thy life deliberately. Okay, this cryptic English stuff is just messing me up. Anyways, but basically saying, he said, you must have something really important to come here and to risk your life. I am ready to give it to thy, even on behalf of the kingdom. There is one petition I cannot grant, and that is the restoration of the temple. I have gave my oath to the Gason of the Arabian, Sanballat, and Harotes in Tubia, and the Amorites, not to allow it to be rebuilt from fear the Jews will rise up against me. And he says, for the moment, Esther refrained from uttering her petition. All she asked was the king and Haman come to a banquet to give. So now this is where she's on a different level, okay? Because she could have easily at that moment come and said that. So number one, even though that spirit that she was able to draw down couldn't come in there, God still sent angels. God sent angels, and angels made that opponent transform his behavior, right? And so that's that idea of talking about technology is saying like having no fear and being purified and being in those places, and how God, even if we have to go in places where certain aspects of the creator can come there, he's already created solutions for that, right? And so now she's like on a different level now, right? So now she's a queen at this point, right? Because now she's saying like, hey, you know what? It's not enough for me just to come and petition. That's what Mordechai said. Mordechai said, go and petition. She's on a whole nother level now. She said, hey, you know what? Let me put let's do something. Let's put together a meal for the king and Haman. Of course, the king's not going to say no to that. But this is where her mind is at. She had good reason for this particular course of conduct. She desired to disarm Haman's uh, uh, um, um, suspicions regarding her Jewish descent, right? And to lead her fellow Jews to fix their hope upon God and not her. Okay, so she desired to disarm Haman. Okay, so she wanted to disarm. That's one thing she wanted to do. And then regarding her Jewish descent. And the second thing, and to lead her fellow Jews to fix their hope upon God and not upon her. Okay? So this is where she's at this point. She's teaching, right? She's teaching, and at the same time, she's rearranging reality. This is the level of Esther, of the Jewish woman, a woman of Israel. It says, at the same time, it was her plan to arouse jealousy of Haman in both the king and the princess. She was quite ready to sacrifice her own life if her a strategy. What is this? Stragments. You guys see that? What is that word? Stratagems.
Stratagems.
Like, does that mean like different strategies?
Yeah, it's like her playing strategy.
Yeah. Okay. Her stratagems. I never heard that before.
Yeah,
Stratagem.
that's interesting.
That sounds like a video game. All right. It says her stratagems would be involved in the life of Haman too, right? I'm not sure what that means. So he says, at the banquet, she therefore favored Haman in such a manner that Ahasuerus would be jealous, right? This is where she's at. And she said, and then she moved her chair close to Haman. And when Ahasuerus handed her his cup of wine and to let her drink from it, she passed it on to his minister. After the banquet, the king repeated his question again and made the adversation that he would fulfill her wishes at whatever cost, barring only the resurrection, aside from resurrection of the temple. Esther, however, was not yet ready. She preferred to wait until another day before taking up the conflict with Haman. She had before her eyes the example of Moshe, who also carved a day's preparation before going out against Amalek, her at the answers of Haman. So she's channeling Moshe right now. I mean, obviously. I mean, that is, say it without saying it, right? So at this point, she's channeling Moshe, and she's saying, I'm going to war with Haman. I'm going to take him out. I'm going to take it out. I'm not going to the king and saying, King, please save my people. This, blah, blah, blah. I'm taking this guy out myself. Okay, so he says, deceived by the attention and the distinction accorded him by Esther, Haman felt secure in his position and prided himself only in the love of the king, but also in respect of the queen. He felt himself most privileged, being in all of the wide realm governed by Ahasuerus. So this is another key point. The way to deal with the nation of Asaph is through compliments, right? If you make Asaph feels comfortable, they get lax. What's the best example? Jacob sending presents to Asaph. Some sages say that the presents that Jacob sent to Asaph, which were like angels, the Mepharshim say, right? And these angels came to Asaph and they were giving him all these compliments and they were inflating his ego to such a point. And I know you read this point that they bit the neck, right? I got it. She bit the neck, goes marble. The whole thing, because he wasn't sincere. Okay, but I'm going to give you an alternative point. Is that Asaph's ego was so inflated by the time he made his way to Jacob, all he can do is just spill over and collapse into his arms. And so this is the dynamic of how we deal with Asaph, right? A lot of times, a lot of our young brothers got in issues with police officers for talking a certain way. A lot of police who come from that nation, right? They come from the European nation. That's Asaph. That's what it's from Rome. That's where it's from. I mean, it's not me. The sages say it. I don't say it, right? So they come from that nation, and sometimes we'll talk to them. And if you notice, if you ever gave cops compliments and you talk to them a certain way, their whole energy changes, right? Because that's how they understand reality. So we're learning it through the sages right now. So this is how Esther set up, in essence, Amalek, right? She made him feel comfortable. She made him feel everything was all good. And she enhanced his ego to the point he's becoming bloated. She says, filled with arrogance and self-sufficiency, he passed by Mordechai, who not only refused to give him the honor decreed on his behalf, but besides pointed to his knee. He put that knee on him. He brought that knee on him, inscribed with the bill of sales whereby Haman had become a slave of Mordecai. Doubtably, trippingly enraged, he resolved to make an example of the Jew. But he was not satisfied with inflicting death upon a simple kick. By a simple kick, he reached upon his home. On reaching his home. So at this whole point, so it's like some psychological thing that's going on right now, right? On one hand, you have Esther, who's completely inflating this guy's ego, making him feel like he's on top of the world. He's like, hey, man, I got the king Olad and the queen, man. I'm running this. This is Haman's life. Boo, right? That whole thing, right? She says, on reaching his home, he was disappointed not to find his family. On reaching his home, he was disappointed not to find his wife, Verish. Ah, okay. So he says Verish, and he says, and the daughter of the daughter of the Palestine. I mean, the Persian satrap Tatina. He says as always, when Haman was at the court, she had gone to her. I don't know, man. I just can't read anymore. Her Parmores. What is that? Parmores. You see that?
Yeah, it looks like paramours.
What is Parmores? Like relatives?
I'll look it up.
Shit, man, they hitting up. We don't speak this way no more. So anyway, so Haman is going home, and he's reaching home. He's disappointed his wife's not there, right? So he sent for her and his 365 advisors, and went with them. He took counsel what to do to be done about Mordechai, right?
She read about. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. This is deep. These are her illicit lovers.
Oh my God. Wait, let's reread this. All right, we gotta go back into this stuff, man. This is I don't know, man. This is some dark stuff. Okay, so as always, when Haman was at court, she would go to her lovers, I guess. This is wickedness. This is Amalek. All right, let's
Yeah,
go. Yeah, let's go. So he says, and he sent. Okay, and he sent for her and his three. Okay, so he sent from them. So see, he just like, hey, he knew where she was at. He'd be like, hey, go and get her, man. Tell her to come through. We need to talk, right? So anyway, so he's trying to get advice. So this is the wickedness he's getting advice from. Number one, right? So he's just pointing to a representative of his treasure chamber, which he wore on his bosom. He said, in all of his worthlessness in my sight, when I looked upon Mordecai the Jew, what I eat and drink loses its face, its savor. If I think, but he says, I but think of him. She says, basically, he's saying, if like the guy discusses me. Among his advisors and sons, in whom were the 208, none of them were clever as Vishra, his wife. She's wicked. We know she's wicked. So she's about to speak. Brace yourself, right? Because there is a transfer of energy with some other stuff. All right. So this is what his wife said. She says, "If a man thou tell he says, if a man thou tellest of is a Jew, thou will not be able to do all to him except by uh, I guess strategy." He says, "Thou if cast upon him a fire, it will have no effect upon him." So he says, if this guy you're talking about is this Jew, it's nothing you could do to him, right? he says, if you do a fire, it won't have an effect on him. Just like Hamanami and Mashael and Azariah. He says, escape from the burning first. And Joseph went free from prison. And Manasseh prayed to God, and he heard him and saved him from the iron furnace. And to drive him out in the wilderness is useless. You knowest the desert did no evil to the Israelites that passed them through it, and putting out his eyes of availed not, for Samson blind did more mischief than Samson seeing. And he said, and therefore hang him. No Jew has ever escaped death by hanging. Right? He says, therefore hang him. No Jew has ever escaped by hanging. Ooh, hanging. All right. So so he says like this. So Haman was well pleased with the words of his wife, and she fetched artificers in wood and iron, and former to erect the cross, and latter make the nails, and the children danced around on the high glee, and while Visar, I don't want to say her name right. played upon the citron. And Haman, in his pleasurable excitement, said to the woodworkers, I shall give abundant pay to I give abundant pay to he said, I shall give abundant pay, and iron workers I shall invite to a banquet. And when the cross was finished, the cross, he says, when the cross was finished, Haman tested him, and he tested him into all that was in the worker, all that was in working order. A heavenly voice heard for a good. It was good for Haman the villain, and for the son of Hamadata it is fitting. The heavenly voice heard if it was good for Haman the villain. What is good for Haman the villain and his son, blah blah blah. Okay, so this is the thing. So Haman gets his advice from his wife, and he goes out. He goes to what they call it, the Galilee or galley or whatever they call it, and they're going to hang him from it, right? And so from there, that's where we're at, right? So what happens, right? So he's going after the big M. He said, disturbed by, he says, the night during which Haman erected the cross. And I just got to keep doing it. It's funny. But anyways, he says when he erected the cross for Mordechai, it was the first night of Passover. Woo! These are the very last night in which the miracle without the number had even been done for the fathers and for Israel. All right. So that's the power of that night. But this time, the night of joy was changed into a night of mourning and a night of fears. Wherever the Jews have passed in the night in weeping and lamenting, the greatest terrors the greatest terrors it held for Mordecai. It had its own because it had it because his own people accused him of having provoked their misfortunes by haughty behavior towards Haman. Excited, and concentrated. Sorry, excitement and concentration regained in the heavens as well on earth. He says, when Haman had satisfied himself that the cross intended for his enemies was properly conducted to repair conducted, he repaired to the Beis Hamikdash. Wait, the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis HaMidrash. It's interesting. She says where you found that. He says nobody says Beis HaMidrash. So it's the base Midrash. I wasn't even saying high midrash. I was like, what is this high? The base, the house of the. Oh, I get it. Anyway, so it's the base midrash. That's where he found Mordecai, in all the Jewish in all the Jewish schools, children 22,000 in number, in tears and sorrow, in order to put him and he ordered them to put him in chains and saying, first I will kill off these, and then I shall hang Mordecai. And their mothers hastened and withered their bread and waters and coerced their children to take something before them to encounter death. And he says, the children, however, laid their hands upon the books and said, as our teacher Mordecai liveth, we will not eat bread, and we will perish, exhausting with fasting. And they rolled up their scarce rolls and handed them to their teachers with the words, for our devotion to Torah, to study of Torah, we have hoped we reward a long life according to the promise held in the Holy Scriptures. As we are not worthy, therefore remove the books. And outcries the children of the teachers of the base midrash, and weeping of the mothers without unity, and with the stipulations, with the supplications of the fathers, reaching into the heavens in the third hour of the night. And God said, I hear the voice of tender lambs and sheep. And Moshe arose and addressed God, saying, Dallas, well, the voices are not lambs and the sheep, but they are the young of Israel, who for 3 days have been fasting and languishing in filtered features. I don't know, features only to be slaughtered on the morrow to tomorrow, to the daylight, to the delight of the arch enemy. So anyway, so this is a huge thing. Haman's coming. He's just going to take everybody out. Everybody's there. You can imagine what this whole thing is like, right? Massive stuff. Then God felt, and then, if we think about it, inside of our DNA, right now inside of our DNA, there's genetic information inside of us that could connect us to this actual moment, believe it or not. So he says, then God felt compassion with Israel for the sake of his innocent little ones. He broke the seal with which heavenly decrees of annihilation have been fastened. And the decrees itself he tore into pieces. In the moment, and from that moment on, Achashverosh became restless and sleep, and then he was made to flee his eyes for the purpose that the redemption of Israel might be brought to pass. He sent down he sent down Michael to lead the host of Israel, and was to keep this. It was to keep sleep from the king, and the archangel Gabriel descended and threw the kings out of the bed on the floor of no less than 305 times, continuously whispering in the ear, "Are thou in great reward with who craves to be rewarded?" So similar to the plagues that were happening by Sarah during the time of peril, these same plagues are now starting to happen inside of Achashvero's thing for different reasons, but similar. He says, to the account of the sleeplessness, Achashverosh thought he might have been poisoned, and whereby he ordered the execution of those in charge with the preparation of his food. But they succeeded to convincing him of their innocence and called to the attention that Esther and Haman had shared his evening meal with him, and they felt no unpleasant effect. And then suspicion against his wife and his friend began to arise in their mind. He accused them unwarily of having conspired together to put him out of the way. He sought to banish this thought with the reflection that if the conspiracy had extended against him, his friends would have warned him of it. But the reflections brought others in its train. Okay, so what's going on here? Okay, so he's going through torture. He's trying to figure it out. Did he have any friends? What was it possible by leaving valuable services unrewarded? He forfeited the friendliness feeling towards him. He therefore commanded that the chronicles of the kings of Persia be read to him. He would compare his own acts with what had preceded, had done with predecessors had done, and tried to find whether he might count upon friends. So this is I'm just flowing with this at this point, right? Because it's like towards the end of fast. So what was read to him did not restore the tranquility of his mind, and for he saw a poor man before him, none other than the angel Michael, who told him continuously, Haman wants to kill thee, and become the king in thy instead, and let him serve as a proof that I am telling you the truth. Early in this morning he will appear before thee and request permission to kill him who saved thy life. So the angels are coming to, first of all, he's out of it, right? He's completely out of it. He just did like 10 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. He's out, right? So the angels are coming to him, and they're convincing him and saying like, hey, this guy's trying to take you out, man. This guy wants to take you out. He wants to do the king. He's like, no, no. He's like, yeah, he's trying to take you out. And he says, so what is my proof? He says, watch. He's going to come to you, and he's going to say that guy who saved your life, he'll tell you to take him out. That's my proof. That's the way he's going to do it. And he says, early in the morning he will appear before thee and request permission to take thee out. Kill him who saved thy life, and when thou request him of the what honor he should be done to him. The king shall delight. What is this English? This old English stuff. He says what his honor would be done to him. The king will delighteth in honor, and he will ask to be given the apparel and crown of the horse as a sign of the king, as a sign of distinction. So he says not only is he going to come to you and he's going to want to take this guy out, but then he's going to request for him the honor. He's going to want to be put on a pedestal. He's going to want to become like a viceroy in a way. He says Ahasuerus' excitement was smoothly only when the passage of the chronicles that reached the disturbing royalty of Mordechai had 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 the wishes of the reader been consulted, Ahasuerus would have never heard this entry. And it was a son of Haman, the son of Haman, who was filling the office of readers, and he was desirous of passing the incident over in silence. But a miracle occurred. The words were heard through; they were not uttered. Hey, we're just going through it. It's wild. It's wild. He says the name of Mordecai and Esther had quietly influenced upon the king, and he had dropped asleep. He dreamed that Haman, sword in hand, and approached him in the evil intent. So the names of Mordecai and Israel had quietly influenced upon the king, and he had dropped asleep. And when he went to sleep, he saw Haman coming to him with a sword. Right? Early in the morning, Haman suddenly, without being announced, entered the chambers of the king when he wakes. So just like he said, Haman comes in the morning, right? Just like the angel told him. He said he comes in the morning. And so what happens? He says Ahasuerus was persuaded of the truth of his dream. The king was still he said the king was still further set against Haman by the reply he gave to the question. Okay. He says, okay, blah, blah, blah. He says the king is still, okay. He said the king is still further set against Haman by the reply he gave to the question of how honor was to be shown to the man who the king delighteth with honor. Believing him to be the object of the king's goodwill, he advised Ahasuerus to have his favor arranged in the king's coordination garments. The same exact thing. He's saying it. He says, "So I'm your main guy. I'm here. I'm here making sure everything's good, and I want you to put me inside of your whole situation." He says, in the royal, and he said, in the crown royal to be put on his head, and before him, with the grandees of the king, was to run, doing the herald service, proclaiming that whomever did not prostrate himself and bow down to him before the king, delighted his honor, would have his head cut off and his house given over to the pillage, whatever that is. He says Haman was quick to notice that he had made a mistake, for he saw the king's countenance change colors at the mention of the word crown. So the guy, I guess his face started to get red, or his facial structure started to change. And he says, and therefore he took good care not to refer to it again. In spite of this precaution, Ahasuerus saw the words of Haman as a striking verification of his vision, and he was confident Haman cherished the design against his life and his throne. Right? So we'll read the fall of Haman, right? He said, Haman soon found out that he had gone far afield in supposing himself to be the man who the king delighted to honor. And he says, and the king ran, and the king's command ran, hastened to the royal treasure chambers, fetched hence to cover, define the purple, a raiment in delight silk, and furnished forth with the golden bells and the pomegranates, and bedrew the diamonds of the diamonds of the pearls, and the large golden crown which was brought from me from Macedonia, Mokodoma, and he says, upon the delay, I descend the throne. Therefore, fetch since the word of the coat of the male, since me from Ethiopia, and the two veils embroidered in pearls, which were gifts from Africa. Africa. And he says, and when he repaired the royal staples, he led, forth and back. Okay, so I'm reading this whole thing out. Okay, and the thing is, I do want to stop here because it's like, the thing is, it's too reedy right now. It's too reedy. So this is the thing. So I just want to talk this out a little bit and get some, thoughts and reflections. So the point is that we're going through this process of seeing this story and seeing how things are unfolding, right? And all these details of the story are here to give us the confidence to walk into the chambers of our Achashverosh and to be able to rise to the occasion in our times when we recognize that the world is counting on us, right? And then being able to have the thinking and the fortitude to know that everything is going to be manifest by Hashem, right? Because we see, even though Esther fasted, even though she was prepared and she put herself in a position to be a channel, God was doing things that no one even knew was happening, right? And no one knew what was happening. And this is the part of the strength that we connect to on this fast, right? That aspect that we cannot see right now. And you may not even feel it, right? But the fact that we're doing this effort on this day with these intentions, we draw down, and that's when we were reading the Kav HaYashar that was about like this idea of drawing the energy of Esther and Mordechai into our neshama. What's being said? We're not drawing people, okay? We're not idol worshipers. We're talking about energies, right? And so that energy that allows us to rise to the occasion and to be able to transcend through challenges, to overcome things, to rise to the occasion, to become kingly and queenly. When that moment calls for us to rise to the occasion, we have this inner strength to do it. How do we get to that? This is what we gain today, right? This is the light that we gain today, and then that's what we're bringing down. And this is our meditation, because this challenge that Esther had. It's a challenge that we all have in our own life, right? We all are supposed to do greater than we can imagine. We're supposed to. And the only way to get there is through the system of the Torah, because that's who even told us this is possible, right? That's one, right? The second part is the aspect of Mordechai, which is the aspect of leadership, right? And to be able to rise to leadership within the collective, right? Esther has to deal with her own self, her own fears, her own intrepidations, seeing how God put her in the right place. That's everybody, man or woman, old and young. Everyone has to see that. But then there comes that other aspect, which is the collective responsibility, right? Which is the community and being a leader and being the first one to go and to be an example and to do the tshuva, right? And even if you didn't even do the sins, you're doing tshuva on their behalf because they're not strong enough to do it for themselves. Anyways, thoughts, reflections.
I'm at work with this, so I'm just gonna listen in.
Okay, cool, no problem. In reflections on the other side, going once, going twice. I think it's a mic issue.
Yeah, I was having a little bit of a mic issue there. It wouldn't click on. I think, you know, what I look at, what I gather from this portion here, it just makes me think about actually two areas. First area is how, it could have been from a basic standpoint. It could have been something like when you think about, like, maybe you had a job interview, or maybe you had some type of meeting, or something that you were trying to accomplish in your life. Okay. and you may have been nervous about it, but you gathered up the courage, you gathered up the strength to start pursuing it or going after it. And Hashem was already working things out. He was already working things out. There was already something he was already working out with those that had the power of influence in your life to make decisions, you know. And all Esther had to do was basically overcome her own fears and then go through those chambers, go through those levels. And it's interesting that when he sees her the first time that he gets a glimpse of her, it's like he's annoyed by it. You know, he's like, man, she's walking through the halls of prostitutes, and so that just lets you know that he was projecting his understanding, projecting his own behavior and customs upon her. You know, the next observation is that if you look at Haman, the sage teaches that Haman was extremely wealthy, right? I mean, extremely wealthy. And, it's interesting because he assumed that Ahasuerus was talking about him. How can I honor this particular man? And at the end of the day, Haman really just showed his heart. He showed how coveted he is, how animalistic he is. Not only did he he wanted to wear the king's garments. He wanted to wear he wanted to ride the king's horse, and he wanted to get the accolades of the king. Now, I do have a question. When they described the garments that he went and got out of the chambers, was that the garments of Aaron? Talk about the pomegranate, the purple, and was that his garments that Mordechai was, had to put on?
Well, the thing is, on that point, I mean, they did take a lot of things from the temple, right? That was the whole point, that they took all the Nebuchadnezzar took all the spoils, right? So those are the spoils that Ahasuerus inherited when he became king. So perhaps they could be. They could even be the garments even from Joseph.
Wow.
Maybe. I don't know, but it's a great point. I mean, maybe there. I mean, it was. Did they make those garments? Did they bring those garments? I mean, sometimes you need commentary on commentary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so I do want to say on the point you were saying earlier, which is this idea of being able to understand that it's only our fear that's stopping us, right? Now, on Purim, we bring this Kedusha down, right? We bring this Kedusha down. But this energy is what we express on the Pesach Seder table. You see what I'm saying? Because that's how we leave for freedom. The freedom doesn't start when you get to the Pesach table. The freedom starts now. The freedom doesn't end. That's the amalgamation, that fourth cup of wine, right? That's the amalgamation of this whole process. But we're changing our character. We're changing our belief systems. We're seeing ourselves in a new way. This isn't about celebration. Yeah, celebrating on the basic level, the simple level. Okay, very nice, celebrating. People are going to be out tonight drinking. My thing is it's like this. My thing is, I'm going to be focused on learning and teaching because the sages make a big point. I'm gonna have, I have a few l'chaim, drink here or there, whatever, blah blah. But my main thing is gonna be focused on teaching. So I will go out a little bit, but I plan on just coming back and just going through it. Whoever wants to join in, you could join in whenever you want to join in. You know what I mean? But that's my thing. Now the issue is on for us, Pesach, Purim is on Shabbat, right? So like by you guys are fasting, you guys have your Suda, the whole thing, the 14th. But because we're behind a walled city, because we're behind a walled city, you know, we um because we're in a walled city, we're on the 15th, right? And so because the 15th is on Shabbat, right? And we can't, read the Megillah on Shabbat, we have to read it tonight, at least like you guys, and then, in the morning, right? That's what we got to do, right? But the meal, we postpone the meal into Sunday, even though there's a lot of big like meals happening on Shabbat night. You know what I'm saying? So for me, so Friday morning, I'm not. People are gonna be partying. They're gonna be partying this. But my thing is, it's like I'm in the code of Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I get it. It's the 14th, and even normally on the 14th, people are partying here. They don't care. They're gonna be wilding out. Like they're already going now. You know what I'm saying? But for me, like it's really about like me, my community, my family, that type of thing, to really be in a place of like learning um, and just being in that mind. So I would just suggest like just really take advantage of prayer in as much learning as possible because it's such a powerful shefa influence coming down from the heavens that unfortunately some people take the drinking thing and they're puking on the street, and it was like, I did the mitzvah. It's like, all right, that's a low level of the mitzvah. There's a higher level. Anyways, all right. So so the point is the same. So this light that we're connecting to, right? This light that we're connecting to is a powerful light that gives us the strength to do exactly what Mordechai is doing, and the strength to do exactly what Esther is doing at our levels, at our dynamics in life. And that's a very, very, very important point to be, because it's not just saying, okay, I fasted, I connected to my soul, but like, what light am I connecting to right now? You're connecting to that light of courage, and you're connecting to that light of leadership, right? And so that's the characters, those elements you're going to gain. And this is part of building this new person going into this next cycle, which is Nisan, which is Pesach, and then from there it's just a whole escalator up, right? With the Omer, the whole thing, and this is the thing. So that's why the system is about becoming new people, right? You're not the same person. You shouldn't be the same person from one Shabbat to the next Shabbat. You shouldn't be the same person from the morning prayers to the night prayers. You should be a different person, right? Because in reality, we're always changing. But through the holiness, we could actually be aware of it and utilize that. So we should not be the same people, right? So all these things are doing, the study, the intent study, the learning, this, just because we're transforming ourselves. We're not stuck into one way, right? And the limitations we had at one phase of our life don't have to be the limitations in another phase of our life. Anyways, any last ideas in closing?
Yeah, Chief Rabbi, I wanna say there's one other observation and it really you and Otanel was talking when we came on about Adam and Eve,
Mm,
and it's interesting because when Zeresh, Haman's wife,
mm,
she obviously she's a very wicked woman. That's a wicked household. Um, but I want you to think about when she gives him advice. Her advice, she said, she used that word sagacity, and what she's saying is that look, you can't harm or you can't touch these Jews and not be clever. You got to be crafty. You got to be clever in order to to deal with them and to overpower them, right? And what we're seeing is every time these moments of this light comes up, you always see the evil inclination like falling upon wicked people. And those wicked people, they understand that they gotta deal with us in a very clever, a very intelligent way of darkness. Because look, in the garden, it says that the serpent was clever. He was subtle, right? And
Mm.
so that's evil inclination. Then you got Pharaoh telling his people, look, we got to deal wisely with these people. We got to deal cleverly with these people. And they start killing our children. They put us in bondage. Um, you have you so in other words, it's like the enemy. That's why we can't, I understand the drunkenness, but we really can't afford to do that. Because we need to be coherent, but we got to be on guard. We got to be on guard right now. To hear those children saying, no, no, we're not going to saturate ourselves. We're not going to eat right now. We're not going to, no, we no. And they took their sacred books and they handed them over because this is not the time to be incoherent. This is the time to be discerning. This is the time to be, because our enemy is crafty. So now it's almost like, hey, what Hashem, please uh, keep us focused so that we don't get caught up in the wiles or the clever snares of the evil inclination. You want to speak?
And I was thinking about how you at the beginning you said, Chief Rabbi, that when we are going through the fast, that we can't see what is actually like manifesting with our soul, like how our soul is getting so big, and it's getting strength. It's just really getting invigorated with that light and that power that we need. But we may feel very weak and feel, you know, pretty vulnerable. And it's like this whole, reading, just watching how Esther went from, like the outward adorning and everything, and then to seeing her, where it said the Holy Spirit, that it was upon her, and then going to where she felt like just giving up. She couldn't do it. She felt like Hashem had forsaken her in some way. It was just all of this whole thing she was going through, this whole play, and it's almost like the levels were just going up higher and higher until, as was noted, she got to that queen status. She got to that status to where she knew that Hashem is with me. I don't have to give in to the evil inclination or stop here. I can go all the way with the with Hakodesh Baruch Hu. And it's just, it was just a really interesting thing to watch play out, the whole thing in this lesson.
And there's a lot of dynamics too that you know that we're dealing with in this reading that we find in other places. So it's but that's all.
Yeah. So those are the points the points that you guys outlined in the points that we're connecting to. Now we're learning that the story itself is there to communicate to us the qualities of lights and opportunities that exist during this cosmic opening. Right? Now the story itself, like I mean, I'm not trying to age myself, but we had Nintendo, right? And back in the day, a lot of people don't realize video games used to come with instruction manuals. You know what I'm saying? And so an instruction manual would tell you how to play. Now it's a crazy. We even had they have video game magazines, right? But the point is saying that this is an instruction manual on how to take advantage and receive the different lights and the qualities of light. And so the text itself, and that's why they kept them as traditions. Because we're looking at the text, okay, wow, what an amazing story. Wow, this is so much strength. But no, they're telling us through this instance, okay, Esther did this. It's not that she did that. It's the fact that she's showing you that this light exists during this time. That's what she's saying to you, that this light exists during this time. This light exists during this time. This light exists during time. Mordecai is showing you this light exists to this time. And then then you see that how the effect of the light even deals with them, right? And then the people who you need on your side, how the light affects them, right? So now you're developing this mastery of influencing the world around you because you know where to meditate at the same points. Everyone has an Achashverosh in their life. Everyone has a Haman in their life, or Haman situations. Everyone has, a group of people that they're responsible for. So they got to be like Mordechai. Everyone's put in a situation where they have to go past themselves, right? Go past themselves to be able to complete their mission in life, right? So all those variables, the light exists there. And we're showing the dynamics of making it easy for you to be Esther. That everyone has Esther inside of them. Everyone, male, female, everyone has Esther, every age. So that aspect of Esther that's inside of us that we need to push forward, that light of Esther, that concealed light, right? The concealed, because she represents concealment. That concealed light is the mechanism that we use to push ourselves forward. But we would know that we can do that and bring that light into our life, not just for the 13th, 14th, and 15th. No, but for the rest of our lives, for the rest of the year, right? That we have this additional strength within us that we would not have had if we didn't participate in these halakot. If we did not do these connections, we wouldn't be able to draw this light. And now that I have this light, I'm stronger going forward in life. Anyways, all right, so let's play tomorrow by ear because I do want to do something tomorrow. I just want to see the earliest time I can hear the Megillah be read because we don't have a Suda tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? We just read and then we're just kind of like, okay, Shabbat, because it's still the 15th for us, right? I'm sure people are gonna be doing things. I don't want to do it. Anyways, all right, so tomorrow I plan on doing a lot of learning, a lot of teaching, in on just everything live. So you guys could jump in as you want. Start earlier, this, but I'm gonna try to get as much in as possible. But after I read the Megillah, so it just depends what time I do it. So you guys will just see. I'll just put a link in the
Yeah,
thing.
just send the photos for 'em. Send the ID.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Mhm.
so you guys have a blessed fast, a blessed Suda, Purim Sameach. We're connecting to the strengths that allow us to achieve that purpose. Like Rob Ashlock says, like we gotta correct our soul in his lifetime. So obviously overcoming fears would be a big part of that, right? And doing things outside of our comfort zone would be a part of that. Okay, so if that's hard for me, how would I be able to do it? Oh wow, we have Purim every year where I could connect to the specific light, and even throughout the year, right? But specifically during this time of year, I get infused with this energy that allows me to do that. How lucky are we, Israel?